Welcome back in. It is Monday Night Live Q&A here on RGR Football. I'm Ryan. This is me going rogue. What are the Chiefs going to do with the Terror Twins? And that's what I want to start to call them. I'm sure they'll get a different name as we go through. But the more that I've taken a step back from the draft, Keondre Coburn adding his pass rush skills to what Chris Jones already does, even outside of the NASCAR package, brings a unique aspect to what I'm hoping we're going to see the Kansas City Chiefs get done. To go through tonight, I'm welcoming everyone in. If you are new to this channel, I'm Ryan. This is Ryan Going Rogue. Me and everybody here on my crew are taking a 360 look at the Kansas City Chiefs across the NFL and with a lot of overlap with some other teams. This is the fun show of the week because this is the one that you guys get to decide everything for. You guys put the questions in and we will set up the answers. You're driving the bus and I'm just along for the ride. So appreciate everybody that's in here and that will be joining as we go through the process. Dan is a little bit indisposed at the moment. He will try to join later in the stream. Not sure if that's going to happen, but we're going to get that. So what I'd like to start with is this concept of Terror Twins. And you heard Keondre Coburn talking just about how much he was lit up to be a guy that gets to play next to Chris Jones. And I love that concept, but it goes two ways because Chris Jones needs to be excited as well that he has someone else that can push the interior action and draw doubles. Now, Chris is going to be the primary foe. So once you get the two of them in there, and it may be base downs, I think second down is going to be the big down that Keondre Coburn gets to get on the field with Chris Jones. Once Keondre starts to make some plays, that's going to draw some of that attention away. And I think that's when this defense is really going to start to click in terms of its overall pass rush. And that's what we have to see. So I'm very excited about that. I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that that is enough to augment what we're going to see with the NASCAR package and all the DNs that are going to line up all over the front? That's going to be the question. If you guys would give a shout out to FLDB and Gary Holland, our mods that are in the house today, we appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for the help. I always need help moderating because especially on a night like tonight where I'm flying solo for a while, I'm going to fall behind. You guys know that. So hi to all of our regulars, including Miss Holly, Jeremy, Alan. Nice to see you guys. The morning is always throwing me off, Alan, but we're going to get to it. So coming back to the defensive pass rush, that's what it's going to be about. We know what we saw last year in that if you can just raise the amount of pressures, you're going to get more sacks. It was noticeably better than the year before, and I think it has a chance to be noticeably better again. If they can just continue to produce pressure, they're going to be able to be in a position to affect opposing quarterbacks more than we actually have seen in quite a bit because they're doing the same concept that they've done across the board in talent situations like defensive back, wide receiver. It's not necessarily like the uber edge rusher. You're not trying to go get the next Von Miller, especially if it's a veteran. They're spreading out talent across the front so you can move pieces around so that you can attack from every spot on the field rather than limiting yourself to a classic attack from the edge. I think that's going to pay off for Steve Spagnuolo and Coach Cullen because I think Coach Cullen's starting to have more of an influence. You see that in B.J. Thompson, who I do think is going to come along through the season. And especially if they do end up doing some kind of get back together with Frank Clark, I think that's really going to help, and you're going to see that. Thank you for this. Appreciate it, FLTB. I know you're setting me up. If you guys want the full experience, you can become a member. You get the behind-the-scenes things. You get my and Dan's rants and honest opinions that maybe we don't put out in public for fear of the not safe for work logo. But you get that over there. You get access to the Discord. You just got to join the rookie level or above and connect your Discord and your YouTube accounts, and you're good to go. Super easy, and I appreciate it. Like I said, Dan will be joining us later, but let's start off. And for all of you that want to support the channel, you can always buy the gear here from Mr. MVP. I'm digging that. That's in the store down below, but Super Chat is always the easiest and quickest way to support the channel if you like what we're doing or you have a specific question. Every Super Chat gets an answer tonight, I guarantee you, and all the other topics we will address. If there's a bunch of folks asking the same type of question or about the same topic, I'll try to combine them just so I don't fall too far behind. Clinton, thank you for your support, and you are first up tonight. A healthy Donovan Smith, still a top 10 left tackle in my opinion, maybe top 7. Well, I hope that you're right. I think I could see it from here, but I just won't know until I see not only is he healthy, but what kind of shape has he been able to train himself into. That's when I'll start, because we do have to recognize that there's a difference moving from, say, a Buck style offense, a lot more power, a lot less truly athletic vertical setting, 45 setting that he's going to have to do in Kansas City. Now, I think his feet are fine if he's healthy. He had an ankle issue last year. He had the elbow issue last year. So it was a bit of a combination. It's not like it was all in one spot, but it gives it a two-pronged kind of attack as to what may have held him back from being as functional as we'd hoped that he would be. Glad that he's here now, because the veteran presence helps and is going to solidify what I think the Chiefs' offensive line needs to be. And it's going to give them an opportunity to really shake it up and let the young guys come along and really fight it out. And I think that breeds success, not just now, but in the future. So, Glenn, I appreciate that. I absolutely am with you, and I hope that you're right. Let's see if he gets there. Steve, hope you're doing well. Najee Johnson did an interview, and he said that he was taking his training seriously. That's a big plus, and was going to DB school. What is his upside in the secondary? His upside is that he has the ability to be a nickel defender that I think can broaden out. I do like his blitz ability. I do like the fact that he's got a change of direction that I think you can rely on, and that he doesn't get shaken loose. It's about recognition, and it's about really staying in phase for me. And he got a year in where I think just playing special teams helps you develop those skills, so he's on his way. I don't think that there's a massive deficit there. And clearly, he earned his way into some playing time, even though on special teams. And I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be in the mix this entire time. We'll see how the battle goes, because I think what you're going to hear on Locked On Chiefs tonight, and if you guys are subs, you may have already gotten it in your streams for the audio side. Adding Chamari Connor is an addition that is not only a blitz technique, box safety, he is a nickel corner as well. And he's got more of that, I hesitate to call him Tyron style, but he can play robber down to slot nickel. Whereas I do think that Najee is a slot period. And I do think that Brian Cook is more of a free to robber. He can play in the box, but he's not a nickel. He's not a corner. He is a safety, Brian Cook. And so I think this fits more into that safety overlap with the nickel cornerback. And I like that. Thanks, Steve. And thank you, Harry. What does Mazi Smith has that Keondre Coburn Keondre Coburn? What's the main deficiency? It's not so much a deficiency, it's a consistency. I wouldn't say both of them were very consistent, but I think Mazi showed his strength and his ability to attack the shoulders of interior linemen a little bit more often, whereas Keondre actually created more pressure in college and was able to get into gaps. He's quicker than he appears, and I hope that as long as he can control his weight and stay in about his playing weight now, I think what you're going to see is that Keondre is more of a three tech. He can go to the one, but Mazi's got that anchor that just sits down, and I think he's more of a true nose. Can he produce pass rush? Yes, but I think Keondre gives you more upside there. So that's why I'm loving this combination of putting Keondre and Chris Jones together, and then you can rotate the edges. You can flip them around. I've seen Keondre rush from outside as well. Not that I'm a proponent of it. I don't think at this level that's exactly what he should be doing. But just having that ability gives you an inkling as to like what his overall possibilities are. And that's what I'm looking for. That said, the style will be different. Keondre will be able to filter in, rotate in. I think Mazi's going to be in pretty high demand right away. So his production stats should look better out the go. But again, I think Dallas is going to use him as a nose. So I don't know what the rush perspective is going to be for him. I think it's going to be a little bit limited. Thanks, Harry. Thank you, Alan. Hope you're doing well. Do we put too much expectations on our rookies? Undue pressure on men who are just starting their dream job. Go Chiefs and go Rogue Nation. Thank you, Alan, and I'm glad you're a part of Rogue Nation. Folks, that's what we call the other part. This is a subset of Chiefs Kingdom. It's called Rogue Nation, and it's over there on the Discord, and you can get all the gear and do all the stuff, but the point is that you're here, so you're a part of it. And I do love the questions, and I'm glad that you guys are here to hear them too, because expectations are a tough thing. There's two cases right now that we could be discussing that I think really expectations is the whole thing. If you close your eyes and you look back on not only the first Super Bowl win, but the second here just last season. What comes to mind about the defensive side of the ball? If Frank Clark isn't making $20 million a year and he's making 12, I think that looks a whole lot rosier. I think expectations because of the contract are what soured a lot of Kansas Cityans on Frank. And I've said that for a while. If it's a less dollars per sack per pressure, you're feeling much better about it. Well, that's the scenario that could be coming at us here very soon if Chris Jones gets his way for sure. The other person that is in that situation is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And again, expectation of being a first-round draft pick and not necessarily getting it all the way done. I think we've seen bits and pieces of him that make me feel pretty positive, to tell you the truth, but it's not the end-all, be-all, and it's not honestly what we had hoped we were going to see. So those expectations are tough. As a rookie class, I don't think I necessarily am concerned about putting pressure on the class as a whole, because individual players are going to have much different and specific opportunities. So it's about what you do with those opportunities. That's what I'm more concerned about. I'm going to stack a couple of these up here just while I have the second. Oh, that's a great. See, Justin, you're always pushing the envelope. I like that. But the class itself just has to fill in. And honestly, the farther down the road that we go after the 21 and 22 classes, the harder it is to live up to them, because they're not, it's going to be very rare to have as much contribution as you had from last season from a rookie class. Clearly, there are a lot more options because of the number of draft picks last year. But there's also guys that just stepped up and stepped into their roles and took what they got and made the most of it. And I think that's the thing that you want to see rekindle year to year, class to class, so on and so forth, because that's what makes a champion be able to regenerate itself. And I know we've got 1,000 terms for what we see teams do: rebuild, retool. I'm changing now because I don't want to misclassify what the Chiefs do in that particular way. So I'm calling it regenerate, because you're really going to do that. You're going to take what is your skill, what is your strength, and you're going to add to it. You're going to have to eventually dilute it by moving away from giant contracts like Tyreek Hill, but then you have to put it back together in the whole. And I think as a whole core of wide receivers, that's a great view of what they have to do right now. So that is exactly what they're going after. And I appreciate the fact that it's not always smooth and it's not always perfect, but it's going to work. And you have to trust the system a little bit, and you have to definitely trust the fact that when it comes down to it, somebody knows more than me. His name's Brett Veach, and I got to ride with it. And that's just at the bottom line. That's where it comes down. Now, I'm trying to share something here with you guys that is not working on my screen setup for some reason tonight. Bear with me just a moment while I try to get that set up. And for those of you, man, it's just not working. Okay. We'll have to come back to that. My screen overlays are not working tonight. Apologies. Alan, thank you for the question. And I think as long as we limit that, I think the rookies are going to be fine. Jordan, hope you're doing well. You said last night that it would be worth bringing Frank back for the right price, of course. Whose snaps and or progress would be taken or hindered by him in your opinion? It's not so much that it would be hindered, because I'm not proposing that Frank Clark come in and be a starter. That's the truth. What I'm proposing is that Frank Clark is in the room to be a mentor and can be that icing on the cake, because what I would like to see is a number of pass rush sets that are Chris Jones as the anchor with a menu inside with him, rotating with Coburn. Nothing against Derek Nottie. Love Derek Nottie's game, but he's not the pass rusher type. He's the first down run cruncher type. And then George, Felix, BJ, maybe we'll see how he develops, flip-flopping in, out, and around. Frank Clark would then get in that rotation with them still out at the edge. And I do think that Mike Dana is going to play a role in both places. So for me, it's not that Frank Clark would hinder anybody. He would be there to help support the rookies like he did for Karlaftis last year. And he would be there to show by example in a limited snap count. It would be much reduced. But I think that keeps him fresh, and it keeps the rookies fresh, and it allows you to go through what we expect every year now to be another 20-game season. And especially with the 17-game regular season, that only makes it that much more likely that the Chiefs are going to have to play that many games, and that's where it gets really interesting. I do want to throw another. Let's see. I'm going to try this again. See if I can share, because I'll show you where my concern is. Because here's what gets really funky with where the Chiefs are this season. And let me add that in. And right here, hopefully that looks normal. Okay. I think that it's close. And if I do that, okay, visible. So everything's fine. You're rolling along. You get through a quarter of the season. You get to game 5, game 6. You're interdivision now. You're learning the ropes there. But where the rookie wall usually hits, guys, is right in that 11 to 13 week. And you got a trip to Germany, very unique. If you're a rookie coming in, that's hard to deal with. Then you come back and you do have the bye, and it's a good long bye because you're playing on Monday night the following week. But then it's right back into the fire against the team that you just beat in the Super Bowl. And then you get the division rival in Raiders, and they're just kind of waiting around for you. I'm a little concerned that if they don't continue to make sure that they can rotate on their defensive front, that they could get to that point in the season that is kind of grueling, especially with all the added travel and the primetime games that are outside the normal, quote unquote, flow of the season, especially for a college guy making that transition, that's where the rookie wall could jump up and bite them. That's what I'm seeing as a concern. So we'll see how it goes through. But I do think that spreading those reps out a little bit, I don't necessarily feel like that's going to hurt anything. In terms of how Frank Clark would get snaps, it would be a little bit from everyone, is my belief. It would be a true rotation. So I don't think it would single out anyone in particular. At least I certainly hope not. Let's see. Sugary, hope you're doing well. What is the realistic ceiling for the defense this year? And that's a great question. We won't know until we see the pass rush come through. I think it's really interesting what they've done with the linebackers, in that Willie Gay can run till the cows come home. Drew Tranquil can as well. And he's got a little bit more pass rush or pass defense experience. If they can maintain not giving up those first downs inside the hashes and inside that 12-yard area, that's going to make a big difference, because that's going to save conversions and teams being able to extend their drives. That comes down to the linebackers. I could see a scenario where it's not on third down Nick Bolton. It could be Tranquil and Willie Gay on third down, giving you that still a true 4-2 kind of look, but guys that we know can turn and run. The question is instincts there, and that's where I think Tranquil can actually help Willie. And if they can raise their level of pass defense at the secondary level, not the front, because the front's, I think, going to come into its own. But if you can just hold those easy throws at 8 to 12 yards to get first downs, I think if you can hold those off and make quarterbacks think about it a little bit more, it allows the rush to get home. And I think that plays into exactly where they want to go with this defense. It's about quickness off the pass rush, but it's also about quickness into either your zone or in identifying what that route is and jumping it. And I do think we're going to see a little bit more chance taking, is my hope. And hopefully a lot more production when we get to that point, because that's truly what I'm hoping for. I want production out of what's going to go on in the pass game at the middle level. I think that will shore up. And if they do that, let's realistically, what could they do? I think they could ascend probably into the top 14, maybe top 12. If the pass rush really gets cooking, that will be the determining factor in my book. Top 10 is probably a stretch for me. I don't see that here, but I didn't see that last year. I didn't see the improvement coming last year due to all the rookies playing. So we could still be surprised. Let's reassess after training camp, or after OTAs. Let's take a look. And I'm sure we'll have plenty to discuss then. Thanks, Sugary. Jack 226, appreciate you. What do you think is behind Patrick is criminally underpaid? Is it just slow news time? Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's Florio trying to make some kind of big heyday. Let's take the guy who's doing it right and try to topple him down or make it some kind of witch hunt for why that's happening. I try not to read into what goes on too often from Florio in particular, but here's the thing. We knew this was going to happen. The Patrick Mahomes contract, and I'm going to pull that up right now, it is such that everyone wants to talk about the guarantees and what Mar was trying to get that, honestly, Deshaun Watson got. to the dismay of the entire NFL. But let me show it to you here and we'll break it down because this is what's unique about it. The guarantee contract stuff is all stuff that teams are just blatantly upset about because they don't want to deal with them. They don't want to have to do a similar thing. Oh, I have to reshare my screen here. Sorry about that. Hang on a second. And teams can be frustrated for a number of reasons. They just don't want to pay money. I mean, that's honestly what it ends up being is they don't want to have to spend the money on it. And okay, I can understand that, I guess. Pop this in here. So this is what Patrick's contract looks like. Let me see if I can maximize that window. And I want to get to the point where you see how everything here until it's nice and low in the base salaries. That's this first column. And you're cruising along 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. Yes, he's at 5.5. This is part of the function of recapturing and restructuring that's gone on here. But you see that these numbers are just gigantic. And that's how they're recouping cap space by converting these to salary, paying them out. And you get to the point here where like the dead cap right now would be 134 million. It's crazy, right? They did this on purpose. They did this so it creates itself a little bit of a piggy bank that they can go back to time and time again and continue to draw from. But you'll see here, the structure of it, even back when it was signed, really hits the wall in 2027, where the base salary hits 10 million and the roster bonus hits 50 million, putting him on the hook for what is, a steady 40, 46, 48, 44. Now all of a sudden it jumps to 62. I believe because of the structure of this, where you can, and maybe that's not even big enough. Sorry, folks. Let me zoom that in a little bit. So this is total cap dollars. And in 2027, it goes to 62 million plus, obviously a little bit of change, the way that goes. This is truly what I think was always designed to be the restructure year or the extension year. I do think 2027 was where it needed to be. Now, do they rush that? I don't know. All these big dollar contracts that we knew they were going to come, so did the team, and so did Patrick. But does that make them move it up? Could they jump and say do it in 2026 after the 2025 season? It's possible. Honestly, the rate that the man is making money, I don't know that he's not going to be in Tom Brady's kind of mentality here very soon where, okay, I'm making all this endorsement money. Like I'm set for life. My children are set for life. Maybe I can take it easy on the team and continue to make sure that we always have talent around me and on defense and at wideout and the whole 9 yards. I do think that they meant to do it in 2027. The question is going to be, do they accelerate that schedule at all? Right now, my money still says no. I could be wrong, but that's just the way that I feel. So we'll have to keep an eye out for it. And we could get some indications, especially if we start hearing things from his representation. I don't expect that, but that's kind of the way that it would come down if it does. Let's see. What Chiefs player will have a breakout year? And that's a great question. Let me get over to the depth chart as it stands today. At least this is again an estimation. This is not any kind of confirmed anything. But breaking out is tough to do when you have two new tackles here. You can see. Now you have a second-year player and a third-year player as your X receivers, Z receivers, somewhere over there. The X factor receivers. I'm not trying to say that they're going to line up at X. Apologies. That's not what I meant. That will be MVS and Justin Watson mostly. Although Rashee Rice can go in there, and I do feel they feel like he's got the body type that he can do X, Y, and X, Z, and slot, cover them all. Richie James, I'm a little bit less optimistic on that. I do think he's going to be like a Z slot only kind of player. But I do think there's upside in Richie James's game, and that might be along with Rashee Rice where Andy starts to concentrate. But the guy that I think they keep calling Kadarius Toney a number one. In their minds, they want him to be a number one, much like they wanted Tyreek back in the day. And so we saw what happened with the progression of Tyreek when they decided he had gotten the skill sets down and he could do what they needed him to do. They were able to force feed him and turn him into the player of the caliber that they thought he could be. And that does take some concentrated attention, but certainly within the realm of possibility. And I think that may be what we're looking at in Kadarius Toney. But I will also say that Sky Moore has, I think, the ability to make the biggest leap in terms of overall production and worth to the offense. He's been a guy that just got off on the wrong start with the special teams thing, started to really come on. And I think what you saw in the Super Bowl with both of them running the same kind of routes and being successful, I think they show you that they're going to be able to do some duo things. They're going to be able to do some things that get the ball into the hands of Sky Moore a little bit earlier. Whereas you can do a little bit more downfield with Tony is my approximation. But I do think both of them have the ability to break out. The question is going to be, what does the rookie do? Rashee Rice, normally a rookie isn't somebody that I would project to have a glaring impact right away, but he certainly is somebody that could. So I like that. And I hope that we see that as well. When is going to be the question. Thank you for that, Chad. And Jeremy, thank you. Chiefs have had a brain drain of coaches and moving to new positions. How much influence do you think this will have on the early season? Well, that's a very good question because there are places where I am a little bit concerned, and I'm going to pull it up here so we can look at it together because it's very specific. It's not like I think that the coaching staff's going downhill or anything like that. I do think there's some question marks, though, and you guys are going to understand where I'm pointing here in a second. When I pull the whole staff up, I'm going to share this back, and we'll look at this again together. I think that gives us the most real estate, right? Okay. So obviously, we all know Coach Andy. And this is where it starts to, I think, solidify. I think Matt Nagy's going to be a good coordinator. I have faith in Matt Nagy. Hopefully this, blows it up enough that it's more visible. Matt Nagy's going to do a good job. I do think his best role, after seeing what happened in Chicago, is the offensive coordinator spot. I do think that's what he's here for. And I think that's going to be his most successful spot in his career. Will he get another head coaching shot? He might. But I do like what he's going to do here. And I hope that he brings back that playful influence that I think he has, and Andy allows him to kind of run with it a little bit more. Obviously, Spags is Spags. You get into the pass game coordinator. That's a little bit of a change for Joe Blameyer, who was wide receivers last year. I'm sorry, was running backs last year. Was he? No, he was wide receivers last year. So a little bit more expansive role. He's going to work closer with Matt Nagy, and maybe not as much with the actual receivers day to day, right? What that's going to change, and we're going to go down here because this is the jump up. Connor Embry is a quality control coach last year that is making the jump to a position coach solely. Now, this works in part because you've gotten a lot younger at the position, closer to Connor's age. Connor's a holdover from his dad, who's a coach and has a lot of ties to Colorado, where Eric Bieniemy knew him, and that's where the connection was. I had expected Connor Embry to go to Washington with EB. He did not. And so I think it's because they could see him growing into this role, and allowing him to get there is going to get him that much more experience. He might be a candidate to go if EB does, in fact, become a head coach here soon. We'll see what happens with Washington in this particular season for them. The other one that I think we're going to be a little bit less intrigued by, only because of what we just said with pass game coordinator Joe Blameyer helping out Matt Nagy and getting the offense on track. But the new guy in the headset that's going to start really playing a part is David Girardi. I don't know David Hart from anything. I've heard a couple of coaches around the league that I know through other people say good things about him. Certainly the team has been talking him up, but it's definitely a change in the dynamic. And so even though there's been a brain drain, I get where you're coming from, Jeremy. I do think that this is Andy Reid's system at large right here, is that you've lost talent. You're replacing it with talent you've already had in-house. It's really interesting that Todd Pinkston is now the running backs coach, a guy that Andy's known for a long, long time, played for him as well. That's a shift, I think, in what we're seeing is the blending back again of the wide receiver position and the running back position, something that we've talked about over the last couple of years that I think is going to become more apparent on the field. Jerry Neely is back at running back in this preseason right now. Was with the wide receivers last year after being a running back in college. And I think it's just, again, how do you line them up and where do you make use of their specific skill sets in order to maximize what they give you on the field? And so I think that blending is another thing that we're starting to see with the coaching staffs. That's what stands out to me. You have your stalwarts, and you're always going to. Dave Merritt is going to be the defensive backs coach. He runs the secondary. Tom Melvin is going to run the tight ends. That's the way that it is. Kudos to Ryan Reynolds, who works in my former area in strength and conditioning, but he's the director of sports science for them as well. Barry Rubin did retire. Shout out. Who was it? Was it Broad? No. It was Braden, I want to say. Terry Braden, sorry, who got the bump up to this assistant defensive line. Again, getting younger at that particular position as the position gets younger. And I think that is something to consider. So while I do think that all these coaches are going to have an impact, I think it's probably going to be Blameyer, Pinkston, and Girardi. They're going to have the biggest impacts. I hope Connor Embry can get in that group. There's a lot of questions about the wide receivers, and I don't think that necessarily falls on him as the wide receiver coach because of how young it is and how really searching it is for what their roles are going to be. Long answer on that one, Jeremy. Apologies. Whoever gifted me the membership, thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Cooper. I don't know who gifted it to you because they don't let me know that. But for those of you that are gifting memberships, get involved. I appreciate getting Sean or Seth in here. And Seth, I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure if you need to upgrade a rookie or whatever to get into the Discord, I think that's the next step that people really enjoy. I have not been on the Discord during draft season because it's just been too hectic and I can't keep up with all the comments. So we'll get back to it here over the summer, but I think it's a great community and being part of here. In fact, I'll have something probably here for you towards the end of the week, a members only video that'll give you a little bit idea what I really think is coming that I am concerned about, that I haven't really fleshed out yet and I don't have on good authority. I try not to bring up any of the concerns really until I have it confirmed by a couple of sources. KL, hope you're good. In your opinion, what's the top 5 biggest question marks on this year's team? That's a good question. Let's go back over to the depth chart because I want to look at that here. And clearly, we have to understand what's going on at offensive tackle. Not to call anybody out, but it's a question mark at right, which you want Taylor. We've seen him do it, but he should be lining up there in OTAs. Does that happen? Does that remain? Obviously, that's dependent on Donovan Smith playing at left tackle. What does he look like? Is he fully healthy? Can he get back to his prior form before last season? That's a question, certainly. Then it comes down to who's going to be the swing. Is it Wanya Morris? Wanya's got, I think, an athletic upper hand on Lucas Niang. Lucas Niang has the experience and the understanding of the offense advantage. That's going to be the question. Who's going to be wide receiver 5? Because wide receiver 5 is going to have to get on the field on the offense at times. Wide receiver 6 is going to be a special teamer predominantly. Could they keep 7? That could be another question mark. And then you get down into here. You see how our lads list out the depth chart right now with a Menahue starter outside. That tracks. Anadika Uzama, obviously, drafted to be the edge rusher. Frank Clark would slot in somewhere in here, and then maybe what happens is that Mike Dana moves over into the tackle slot. We'll see. But you see that we've got Willie, Nick. They're listed as the weak and mid backers. They don't really list a Sam backer here because they don't really use him. That would be Leo Chanel. That's the role they used him in last year. And then Watson, McDuffie, Snead, Reed, and Cook. No questions there in my mind. The question will be, who's the third safety? Who comes in and does somebody spell at nickel? Is it Chamari Connor? Just finished doing a great piece on Locked On Chiefs today on Chamari Connor. If you guys missed my social media, let me see. I probably have to go over to my other laptop to upload it. But put out a graphic of all of our metrics on Chamari Connor and how it ties in and how he fits in within the group. It's a great fit, and I think you guys are going to be pretty pleased with it. I expect him to be a guy that can be a contributor here pretty quick. I would certainly hope by the end of middle of the season. Brent, after every draft, very early draft question, but do the Chiefs have a chance of trading up to get Olaf Fashanu or Joe Alt in the next draft? I mean, it is super, super, super early. At this time last year, Tyree Wilson was not even on anyone's radar for the first round. I will tell you that dramatically. I don't think Anson Harrison or Darnell Wright were on anyone's first round list at this time last year. Yes, Olaf Fashanu probably would have been the top tackle taken had he come out this year. Yes, Joe Alt has ties to Kansas City, clearly, and is a very good player. Now, Sam Hartman is the new Notre Dame quarterback. I think that actually helps him in terms of how many pressures he'll give up because Sam knows how to get the ball out. He understands how to attack defenses. I'm super high on Sam Hartman as a fledgling quarterback that's going to be not a top top guy. He could be anywhere from 4 to 8 by the time the next draft rolls around, but that's going to affect how Joe Alt comes out. I think Alt is due for a climb. I just don't know how far. So we have to see performance, but there's always a chance. It just depends how much you're willing to give up. Right now, both those guys are top 10 in terms of talent. Do they end there? It depends on the quarterbacks. In all honesty, quarterbacks and edge rushers, that's what it depends on. If you can drop them out of the 10, get them to 13 or somewhere like that, then the Chiefs have a chance. They might be willing to give up 2 number ones next year's and 25 in order to go get a left tackle of the future, because I know that they like both those players and a couple other tackles in this class as well. Great question, Brett. Marcelino, hope you're well. Based on whom we've lost and whom we signed and the proper equations, what comp picks could we possibly receive? Right now, by what the experts say, and there are no experts, it's just guys that have looked at this formula quite a bit. The official formula is locked away in the NFL vaults, and we don't even know what it is. Right now, it looks like the Chiefs could get back a 5th, possibly a 4th. Depends largely on Orlando, but we'll see what happens, obviously, with Juwan as well, because Donovan Smith does not fit into calculations because of the timing of where he was signed. Not going to be a factor there, but Juan Thornhill's going to play a ton of snaps too. And I love the way that Juan took number 1 in Cleveland, by the way. So that's going to help. Like, I think it's going to be interesting. We could see those picks bounce up, but right now it looks like a 4th and a 5th. I'd love to see a top 100, another 3rd round comp pick would be perfect. Let's see how it drops out here through the year. Florio really bullied Veach into giving Pat more money. Will the reported salary increase for Mahomes help or hurt cap space? I thought they were more concerned about building a team around him. They definitely are, Dylan, and Florio hasn't done anything. Nothing's changed in Patrick's contract. And it's I don't expect it to anytime soon. So Florio can't really do anything to Brett Veach except make suggestions. I'm really interested to see what they do the next time they're together, because I think it's either training camp or certainly at the combine is where Brett usually talks to Mike Florio. Maybe we won't see that happen anymore. I don't know. Jonathan, hope you're doing well. How many sacks do you think our defensive line gets this season? I think Chris gets 15, George 9, Felix 7 to 8. I will tell you this. I think Amenahu's good for 8. I'm really interested to see what Felix can do. I'm not 100% about that one. But I do think that the Chiefs can top out what they did last year, which I wanted to say was 3rd in the league, wasn't it? I'd have to take a look. Let me try to do that real quick. And, I'm just showing you guys all the inside references that we use for stats and all that, because I'm constantly on sites like these trying to do the research to make sure that everybody, knows what's going on. And I'm looking at defense from last year. And that is not coming up with team stats like I want it to. That's individuals. I want teams. Oh, I guess I can share this with you guys. So I'm over on PF reference, and that's what I am looking for. And you see that, which, by the way, is kind of nice here when you see solo tackles. Drew Tranquil added for a cheap offseason cost. Got to like that. Nick Bolton right up here. So, that tells you something about what usage is going to look like. Before I just burn all kinds of time in there, because I'm already way behind you guys. And if you are asking questions, please put your question marks at the beginning of them. I'm going to jump back into the chat here in a minute and go grab some more. I do think that they can get to where they were last year. I hope that they can surpass it. I'd love to see, I don't know. I'd love to see a 50 sack season. That would make me feel pretty good. I can't guarantee it, and it certainly would be surprising, maybe, given the youth that we're seeing go on right here. Let me double check. I think I actually did find it here, so hold on a second. It looks like totals. Nope. Not in the right place. Sorry, wasting people's time. I'm going to go back to answering questions and do what I do. Is Mahomes injury prone? So, Jonathan, thank you for your question. Is Mahomes injury prone, even though it doesn't hinder him? Every year it seems there's an injury of sorts. Kev, that's a good question. He certainly does get banged up. I will give him that. but I wouldn't call him injury prone because it never seems to knock him out. And I think that's the turning point for me. If you allow yourself to be injured to the point that you can't play, then that's something to be concerned about. The nagging injuries that happen, I don't think that that's something that bothers me that much. It feels like, honestly, that's an aspect more akin to the fact that that he's had kind of a leaky offensive line, despite it being better and the interior three being absolutely great. It's the tackles that keep giving things up. And so I think if they can shore that up and not make him have to deal with as much pressure, I think that will help the whole thing all the way around, and certainly will help with the nagging injuries, I think. Let's see. Justin, that's funny. I'm grabbing a couple more of your questions, folks. If you do have questions, we're a little past 2/3 of the way here. Hit them with the question marks in the beginning, please. Only way that I can find them. Dan was trying to get here. I don't know if he's going to make it for sure or not. Thanks, Kev. Thank you, Chad. Where do you rank the Chiefs' offense and defense this year? I expect the Chiefs to be the best offense in the league again. I don't care who's catching the passes. They proved to me last year that they can retool and regenerate what they need in order to attack and be that kind of prolific offense. It doesn't floor me at this point. I'd love to see them sprinkle in a little bit more run. I think Pacheco was effective. I don't think he got the volume. Now with Clyde, and I do like Prince to make the roster right now. Could we see a Dalvin Cook thing? We'll see if he ever gets released. But with Jarek back so early this year, I really do like that. And I think the running back room is going to be better overall, it feels like. In 23 than it was in 22 is my point. Since we're favoring every game this season for now, how many games do you think we will win? That's a great question, Jason, and I haven't gone through and done my projections yet. We're going to do projections next on Locked On Chiefs on Friday. Then I'll do my post-OTAs. Then we'll readjust, and we'll do another one just as camp ends. So, I will say this, coming off the Super Bowl, having to fill a couple of holes, I nailed their record last year, and I was correct. I'm going to be a little bit more conservative this year, so we'll see if that comes out as we get closer to the season, but expect 13-ish to where I'm going to be. Joe, record prediction. There you go. Got you guys back to back. Justin, Coors or Budweiser? First, let me say, I am more Odell, Avery, New Belgium than either of those. But if you had to force me, Coors Banquet beer was my beer of choice in college before I knew what craft beer really was and how good that was. So I'll go back to that one. But thanks, Justin. Gary's in the house. Everybody say hi to Gary. Maestro, if you were to talk to Andy Reid about bringing the fullback and give us the argument to convince him, in that, Andy, there are those games where you're getting pressured and you're trying to find things out and you're trying to run 17 screens. If you just will trust the fullback and let him block for you and run off tackle and don't run all this wide zone, let him do his job that isn't just a dive, you'll get more out of the fullback. I don't have to talk Andy Reid into it much. He's been one of the proponents of keeping the fullback in the game, and I'm a little sad that it looks like that's finally come around to him saying, I just can't justify it anymore. But Andy's been on the fullback side, so cheers to him. Jeremy, which new league rule change intrigues you the most? I really haven't gone over them much. I've been so deep in draft. And honestly, the last week I've been trying to relax and spend more time with the family. So I like the zero thing. I like guys being able to wear zero. I like the funkiness. Let's make it a little bit more playful in terms of numbers. It's a no fun league. Let's dress it up a little bit there. I'll go with that for now. I'll try to review the rule changes and we'll go with them here in the coming weeks, Jeremy. Varian, hope you're good. What does a full year production look like for Kadarius Toney? If he can be healthy for a full year, and by that I mean 17 ball games, there's no way that 1,400 yards is unsurmountable. He can do that, especially in this offense with younger guys trying to come along. It could become the Toney and Kelsey game, much like it was with Tyreek. What I'm more concerned about is I want double-digit touchdowns out of him. I don't really care how, whether they're long, short, medium, pivot routes is just fine as long as you're scoring those touches. That's what I'm looking for. So I think you could see 1,308, 1,310 is what I'd be hoping for. Maestro, I hope you're well. Thank you for this one as well. Always appreciate the super chats, everyone. How much do you convince Andy to? How would you convince him? I would just say, you should trust it. You've been here before. Find a new way to use it, and when you do, just let it happen. Don't just use him. I think Andy Reid did a disservice to Mike Burton last year by just basically running him on dives. He had been way more creative with him the year before, and with Sherm before that. So I think it was a little bit on Andy. Thank you, Maestro, and thank you, Gary. Do you see Kadarius getting 1,000 yards if he stays healthy? Yes, that's exactly where I'm going. But again, that's about staying healthy. 16/17 games. If Snead was the 31st pick, would we still love him? Well, I certainly would, but there would be a lot more about overall production. Does he take the ball away enough? Dropped interceptions would be a conversation, and missed tackles would be a conversation. But as a fourth round, we absolutely love him, right? But I actually believe it would probably be a lot more coarse conversation right now, Wink. That's a great point. I think he has ascended easily to be worth the 32nd pick in that draft. So hindsight being what it is, I think he is one of the top 32 players from that year. Alan, thank you. Would you try Leo Chanel at defensive end, 6'2", 250, considering the depth of our linebackers? Any thoughts? I don't. He doesn't corner. He's not an edge rusher. He doesn't dip and corner. Can he bull rush? Sure. Can he get around the edge on some guys because he does have a great first step? Sure. I prefer to see him just be that power, either the Sam overhang or a guy that is mugging the line of scrimmage like he did at Wisconsin. I'd like to see him just do what he's great at, and that is absolutely obliterate the B gap and take it apart. I think you do that, and now all of a sudden you've got like a little bit less predictable in the front and a lot more athletic. I say send him. I want to see 5-man rushes. I am here for that all day long. Chad, is Poona Ford still out there? That's a great question. I will double check that while we're talking because I want to say yes. And he was let go, I thought, and not picked up. I could be wrong, but we're going to find out here in a second as I'm doing the search. And it looks like I am wrong. He got picked up by the Bills. So no, Chad, he is no longer available. Jonathan, if Casey gets to deal with Chris, who would you rather bring back on a cheap deal, Frank or Carlos Dunlap? I really think Carlos could have had the same effect as Frank and be more productive. I do think that Carlos could be more productive. I don't know if I agree with you on whether he can be the mentor or not. I don't know Carlos well enough to know whether that's the case. I know Frank will do it. And I know that he has ability to pull some nastiness out of guys. So I feel like that's a better bet in terms of that part. I'm not saying Carlos can't do it. I just don't know any examples that he has. So I think right now it's probably Frank. And I think the bonus is that he brings that nasty edge himself. I think they could use some attitude, to tell you the truth. Because Chris Jones is a fun-loving dude. He's not like the destroyer, intimidator, right? He's more likely to crack a joke than anything. So I do think that you need that kind of salty edge. Thundarius, thanks for the support, buddy. I got really sick after the draft, but I finally be posting my draft video. Awesome. I'm glad to see it. I'll be putting a Google Drive folder of all my footage together for you. What email should I send this to? Hit me at rgrpodcast@gmail. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And that goes for everybody. It's right. Hang on. Let me get that up on screen. It's right here. rgrpodcast@gmail.com. Super easy. Even I can generally remember that. And you guys know how iffy memory is for me. But yeah, hit me up there, Thundarius. I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing it. Patrick, what's your projected Chris Jones contract like when he extends? I see Chris coming in probably, I think, a 4-year. I think length is one of the things that they're discussing. I think Chris is going to come in around 4 years, 90, 92, something like that. 22, 23 million a year, and I think he's worth it. I think that allows a little bit to get Frank back as well. Could he push for 25, 26 million a year? He certainly could. And I think there are teams out there that would pay it, and that's going to be the rub. Des, thank you, sir. Appreciate the support. Is it possible for Pat could regress without Bieniemy? I think he could regress in the terms of not being quite as aggressive, which sometimes I think would be a good thing. I think Bieniemy gives him a push, go attack, and maybe Pat needs that at times. But I think he could regress a little bit that way. In terms of like his accuracy and his ability to deliver the ball, no, I don't really see that. I think Bieniemy was not as much a mentor as a guy that just kind of facilitated. You know what I mean? I don't know that he helped like mold Patrick as much as support and steer him a little bit. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going on in the chat, but any of you guys can boot whoever needs to be booted. FLDB, Gary, I don't know what's going on here. Justin, I answered your Coors question, man. I did best I can anyway, because the world loves Budweiser too. At least it usually does. I don't know what's going on with it now, but what's up, Cole? How you doing, buddy? Keys is in the house as well. Everybody say hi to Keys. Everybody joining in here tonight. Yeah, let's. Okay, this guy is banned. See ya. Okay. And hey, you guys, you did boot him. Okay, thank you, FLV. I appreciate that. I just banned him. I'm not playing. I don't have time for that crap. So I know it's a different time, and maybe when we change the live streams, maybe we get a different crowd. I don't know where that comes from, man. I don't know. Sorry about it. Thanks, Des. Appreciate you, and thank you for this one as well. What's McDuffie's ceiling? Trey Wright? I actually think I could see him being more effective because I think he's more adaptable. He can play zone as well as he plays man. I think he can play nickel better than we expected, even better than I expected. So I see him more as truly a guy that can become a number one, like top 20 CB. I do think he will be a mainstay. At some point, I hope that they extend L'Jarius Sneed. That is my goal and my hope. If they don't, McDuffie will be the number one, and I think I'm comfortable with that. If they do, McDuffie will still be the number one after L'Jarius' next contract, is the way that I see it. Thanks, Des. And thank you, Terry. What's the biggest need that you think we have right now? That is a great question. And I'm going to go back to the depth chart, and I'm just kind of going to reiterate a little bit of what we're seeing here. A lot of youth and question marks on the fronts, tackles on offense, edges up front. I don't think there's room to bolster them much more than a singular addition of, like, say, a Frank Clark. The other place would be target. If you feel that Rasheed's going to be what he's going to be, and you still want to add a veteran, that's one other place that you could upgrade. But I wouldn't call either of them needs. I feel like you can go into the season right now and be comfortable. I don't feel like you have to go get anything in order to feel like you can win as many games as you won last year. Thanks, Terry. Thank you. Let's talk about the 2029 draft. Yes, I'll get right to it. I'm not even close to out there yet. Jackson, thank you. Is it possible to consistently finish your way out of physicality from a corner as a wide receiver? Consistently, no. Somebody's always going to get you, but can you do it 75 or 80% of the time? Yes. It's about fakes. It's about your hips and shoulders. Can you dip a shoulder to get away? A lot of guys can do that, and that's what Kadarius does quite a bit, actually. So it's within the realm of possibility enough to make sure that you can. Deshaun Jackson did that quite a bit because he couldn't physically move guys off of him as well. But it does take kind of a rare guy to get that done. Justin, is it possible to randomly gift yourself a membership? I don't absolutely know. That's a great question, Justin. I will try to figure that out. Bumpa, thank you for the support. Am I wrong in thinking that the O-line wide receiver core have both been downgraded from last season? Travis Kelce being 34 this season can't help. I agree with you on Travis. We got to protect him. I will give him this, though. Between the rookie injury and just generally keeping himself in pretty good shape, I do feel he can play till like 39, 40. I do believe that. The question is, how much grind do you put on him? And I do think you need to take some snaps away from him gradually over the next few years in order to keep him elevated. Again, we're talking about a team that we expect to play 20 games a year. It's not just getting through 17. And that wears on you. So I think they got to protect him. I could see to the point, especially matchup dependent, where if they feel that Noah or Jody are ready, that they sit Travis once or twice this year. And I could be okay with that. particularly against, teams that you feel you have a significant advantage over, like Denver or the Raiders. I don't think Kelsey's ever going to miss a Raiders game voluntarily, though, so I'll just say it that way. But as far as the O-line and wide receiver being downgraded, they've certainly lost experience. I am not so sure that I will call it a downgrade, because I do think overall, I was pretty frustrated with what Orlando Brown was and wasn't in terms of what they want to do. I think both these guys are better fits. And I think collectively, Taylor and Smith could outperform Brown and Wiley pretty significantly in terms of pressures allowed. And that's my number one metric for a pass blocking tackle. So wide receiver, yes, I would say that it's downgraded, but has potential to rebound. KL, thank you. Use this super chat as an excuse to talk about whatever Chief-related thing has been intriguing your mind lately. Well, thanks, KL. Let me take it in this direction, too. We have to keep in mind as a fan base or groups that are not just, looking at the league as a whole, as people interested in this team, that, yes, they're going to make some tough decisions. And going what they're going now, their philosophy of youth at wide receiver and youth at defensive back, even though that's generally counter to what the rest of the league does, it's setting them up for the dynasty, for the long haul, for the next decade. And I think we might have times this season that we get a little bit more frustrated. But I think that's what we have to keep in mind, because there's so much youth on this roster right now that we have to see the long plan. This has gone from a bank heist to a long con, and it's going to take a lot of bits and pieces to get it there. So let's stay on that kind of focus, as things will hit some bumps in the road, but I think it's going to all work out well. Thanks for that, KL, though. And you got me thinking, buddy. Dez, thank you. Should we be worried about the new Chargers offense? I mean, only if Keenan Allen can stay healthy, and we know that answer. Just saying. I don't know what they're going to do to run the ball. Let's take a look at them, too, and we'll look at this together, because I'm not so sure that you've gotten more talent, certainly, but you've gotten more of what you had in Quentin Johnson, adding into Mike Williams. They're very similar players, in my opinion. Mike's better at the catch point, certainly, and Quentin's better at acceleration. Keenan Allen, Darius Davis, I don't know that you're getting a bump there. Josh Palmer made some catches. He also, gave up some plays. So I see this as, maybe overall, maybe 2 years from now we could call it. Right now, I'm not so sure that it really helps them that much. What I'm more concerned with is they still have Sawyer in here and Slater's coming back. Their right tackle is the only weak link on their offensive line that I can see. I find that a bit of a concern. If Gerald Everett actually plays up to his potential, he could be really, really challenging. But this is where I'm not feeling any more threat in what the Chiefs have been, allowed to be poor at lately, in allowing the running. It doesn't look like they've strengthened themselves much. So I'm not too super worried. I do think they are the next best in the division when it's all said and done to the Chiefs, but I don't feel that this makes me think like the Chiefs have to be able to score more points than they have in the last two seasons. I feel like they just have to do their thing, and that will put them on top for Kansas City. I'm going to do a last run through the questions just to see if there's anything I missed. Hit that like if you guys would. That is a great point. Thank you for reminding me, you guys. Keys. Oh, that's not a question. Sorry. Okay. There's one. And Mark. Okay. I love it when Bob Sutton shows up. Welcome, Bob. Always makes me happy. Let's see. Do you think there will be a mismatch on defense because of the new defensive players coming in? One, a rookie, has always had two blockers, and he will be next to Jones. No, I'm not too concerned about it. I think Joe Cullen is the ace in the hole. I think he changes the way, especially front players, adapt. Dave Merritt is smooth as silk in the back in the secondary with young players. It's Cullen that I think really has been making this transition possible. And not that Brendan Daly did a poor job before, because I like what he's doing at linebacker. But I do think Joe Cullen's going to erase any of those concerns in terms of form, fit, and how you function. That feels solid to me. Wolfpack, are you concerned about the receiving core? I'm really not. I could see them wanting to upgrade, but I don't think it's an imperative. I think they can win much like they did last year with a group. And the question is going to be who in that group is going to stand out. Really interested to see Rasheed, but I really want to see Sky Moore take that step forward. Excuse me. Ninjamura, appreciate you. As Kelsey ages, how much does the offense regress? That's the big question. It's got to not, in order not to regress, it's got to diverge. It's got to have other options. I think they tried to run more screen last year than they were really capable of. I hope that changes this year. And I think you have to find ways to get to the intermediate level of the field with Tony and Sky Moore and now Rashee Rice. I think MBS is still kind of a streaker. He's still got to be a guy that takes the top off the defense. The deep overs are good, but like underneath stuff is not really what he's here for. And it's not the jam that I'm looking for. So it's that between the hashes and that 8 to 20 range that you got to find some more answers as Travis gets older. I'm totally with you, and that's a good question. I'm leaning heavily on Rashee Rice and Sky Moore there. Probably Sky more than Rashee Rice. Thank you. I appreciate the support. Des, thank you again. Any chance no extension for extending Creed and Trey? No, I think they'll both be extended. And I don't think that has anything to do with Chris Jones, if that's what you're getting at. I'm not sure if I'm tracking you right there. Sorry, buddy. Ruthless, what's your opinion on Justin Reed putting on weight approximately at 218? He said on his Instagram. I love that. That means they're going to play him down more, and I think that's good. I think Brian can handle high. I don't want to see him as a single high a lot, but he can do it if he has to. But I think Justin showed that he's got the speed. I think they like what he brings, but he's got to be able to body up on tight ends a little bit more. So does Chamari Connor, and I think that's part of why he's here, just so you guys know. But Chamari's only like 203. So bodying up a little bit is going to take some girth. Good question. Haji, do you think the CEH will still be with us at the start of the season? I do, actually. I don't think you're going to get any trade value for him, and so I don't see any reason to move on if you don't. Getting nothing for him doesn't do you any good. So I say ride with it and let him contribute as part of the rotation where he can. Mark, hope you're good. With Peacock getting an exclusive game, do you see more streaming services getting exclusive games? You know, that seems to be the way that it's going. I haven't been quite up to the business negotiations as part of it, because I know with the Amazon deal and now going to YouTube TV, I mean, obviously those are both streamers, but the exclusivity part is what I'm really trying to wonder about. I could see Paramount making a play for that. I know Apple wanted in on the base service, so I could see them making a play to make a huge deal out of it. Could it turn some weekly games into like bowl games in college? It could, because if you do get networks or streaming services that just get a game or two, you could see them go all out just for the advertising dollars. So could make some of the weekly primetime games that much more of a circus, to tell you the truth. Wolfpack, we are 3 months away until we see this team goes to camp. Are you ready? I certainly am. Thanks for asking us, Wolfpack. Bob, welcome back. Does Frank Clark come back after all with the Chris Jones Twitter post? I think that they're considering it. They just got to get a couple things done, including the Chris extension, before they can. But I do think that they're all kind of leaning that way. It would make sense. Ninjamura, appreciate you. With all the defensive investments over the years, is this the year they have high expectations for the defense? Can we be elite? I don't see it yet. I don't see it as elite. You're talking about having at least 4 or 5 starters as second-year players and 3 or 4 rookies that have to rotate in pretty heavily. I think that's still a year or two away, but I do think they can get to the top 10 in 25, maybe 24 if they really push and everything just clicks for them. I think the goal here is to be a top 16, a top half of the league defense this year. Tom, thank you, sir. Appreciate your support. And folks, we are going to wrap it up, I think, with Tom and make sure that we get everybody out on time. So give a hand to our mods, all of them. Make sure you check out Stevie over on the Discord. And you can do that by becoming a member and just connecting your YouTube and Discord accounts. Super, super easy. Thank you for all you super chatters tonight, like Tom. We'll wrap with his question. Do you think that they keep – who do you think they keep in the wide receiver room? Who makes the starting roster, bench, special teams? Great job. Come to Nashville. I definitely will be in Nashville at some point. Probably next winter Tom. So we will definitely try to connect there. Let's see here. Let's go over and go back to the depth chart and see what we think, guys. I might be a little out in left field on some of this because I do see the top three as the top three. I agree with what Our Lads has here. And I do think that Rashee Rice as a second round draft pick is a shoe-in. So there's 4. I like Richie James. I'm just not sure if slot only is what he can do because I think Marset is closer to Richie James than we think he is. And I do feel like the long shots are going to be Freifogel and Justin Ross. We'll see when they actually get on a practice field. I hope that it's OTAs phase 2 or phase 3, but I don't know. So let's see what happens there. So I think this is pretty close, but I could see these 2 guys swapping and being a 6. I could also see them keeping 7 players. So practice squatters would be either Richie or Smith Marset. Certainly Justin, I think you'd keep around. I'd like to see Freifogel. Ely's going to be listed, I think, under running backs again now, so I'm not too concerned about that. And shout out to LaMichael P. Ryan, who I never talk about because we just haven't seen him do anything. It's hard to project. So that's who I think will probably line up in those groups. So thank you again for everyone being here. I know it's a little bit different and must have had some bigger problems than I thought, but hey, he's doing a great job, and he'll be back with you. He's doing, what is it? I think it's not Rashee. No, it's Sky this week from Dan. Gary's going to be back with some more of his machine learning algorithms. You guys really want to see that because that's going to keep going as we get closer and closer to the more theoretical things that we spread the offenses around in the NFL. I think you're going to see some more analytics shift. Certainly is for me as we're trying to keep up with everything at Rogue Analytics as well as NFL 33. So if you haven't seen NFL 33 yet, jump over there. There's some free content, but the bulk of it is our evaluations are behind the wall. But we'd love to see you guys over there and get subbed even at the free side. We would appreciate it. Last couple comments. Thank you, Alan, for being part of Rogue Nation. Until next Tuesday morning in Queensland. Awesome. Yeah, and have a good chat with Cole as well. I appreciate you, Jayhawk. Appreciate you, Stevie. Thank you, guys. Have a great night, and we'll have more for you tomorrow, and then Seth later in the week. And hey, if we get news, you know that we'll be here breaking it. So have a great one, and I'll talk to you next time.